I put this in this morning, Paul. I may take off all of February, all of March,
wow,
and half of April.
Okay.
Mrs. Keene says you have no life. All you do is work. She starts screaming about Jody Lurie, our cruise analyst here.
Yep.
And she goes, Mrs. Keene has lined me up 81 days, free business class airfare, 10 countries, the Arctic to Antarctic Explorer trip with Viking Holdings. Ready?
Boom.
$77,999.
Oh, it's a bargain.
We can do it. Joining us now, Jody Lurie. How is the state of the cruise business, Jody, looking from Arctic to Antarctica?
So, Tom, I think it depends on the company you ask, because Carnival and Royal would tell you that momentum is strong, things are good. Viking would say the same. And Norwegian yesterday, though, was a little bit disappointing, not so surprisingly, because they had a sort of last-minute change in CEO. They've been lagging a lot of their competitors, and the strategy they've taken to delever has not been in sync with their peers. They've said cost-cutting is the way to go. They haven't really cut debt. And so there's only so many costs you can cut before customers notice, and I think a lot of customers have noticed.
What's the industry doing, the cruise business doing in terms of capacity? Are they ordering new ships, building new ships? Are they holding pat? What are they doing with capacity?
A mix, Paul, because, I think that it's really, at the end of the day, some of the companies like Carnival are taking the strategy of not having new ships for a few years, and instead they're refurbishing ships. So they took an AIDA ship, for example, they completely redid it, and they said that extends the life of the ship. But then you have other companies like Royal that's venturing into river cruises with Celebrity, and you also have Norwegian that's been very aggressive with adding ship capacity. And that's something that we've been concerned about, is that when you order these ships, a lot of it is financed, but you still have to pay a lot of it with cash. So if you have this high capex, you gotta get the cash somewhere.
I'm looking at Carnival, Paul, and I'm ignorant about this. To be honest, folks, I've never been on one of these trips. They make 11 cents, 12 cents in the dollar down the income statement. Mm-hmm. They're modeling some kind of single-digit revenue growth. They're delivering free cash flow, but they're enjoying a 41% debt. 4-1.
I know. Well, that's why...
This is like old school.
That's why you got to have Jody Lurie's of the world, because, there's a lot going on there in the capital structure. Talk to us a little bit about an area that I think is really interesting in the travel biz, which is U.S.-Canada travel. I know when the tariff started and the name-calling started on behalf of President Trump, 51st state and all, the travel from Canada down to Florida, down to Arizona when it gets cold, that used to be a mainstay, but that kind of dried up there. People were upset. Where are we today on that whole thing?
So Paul, I think a lot of the conversation last year was around the fact that Canada travel was not what it once was, and I think that the thing about Canada travel is that it's improved since a year ago, but it's nowhere near what it was in 2024. And what's so interesting about that is we had the World Cup, where people were definitely going to games across borders, right? People were going to games in Canada and the US, and so you would think that would encourage additional travel, but we haven't seen that as much. Now, where Canada has benefited is from the international travel to go to the games there, so from Europe, from other countries, but in terms of that cross-border, it's still not what it once was. It's getting better, but we're not still seeing that home run. And what's so interesting, or at least what I found interesting, was that the gaming companies have felt it in Vegas. I never thought of Canadians as huge gamblers or huge visitors of Las Vegas, but apparently they are, and that was felt by both MGM and Caesars.
Yeah, I was always of the opinion, when that first Arctic wind came into Canada, like November, December, they would just fold like a tent and come back down to Arizona to Florida, but that did not happen. I was wrong there. They're pretty serious about this.
Yeah. They Canadians are not happy, I think, with the political situation. Obviously, it fluxes also with foreign exchange rates. That's a big thing. And immigration policy. It makes it harder to come to the U.S. if you're concerned about the immigration policy that's going on. So, but at the same time, domestic travel is pretty strong in the U.S. Yep. And what we found so interesting, though, is like Avis reported yesterday, and we cover Avis, and they talked about the fact that they were disappointed by World Cup travel and by international inbound into the U.S. And living in a city that hosted some of the FIFA World Cup, you would not think that that the World Cup was not a success. In fact, I think it's just that either people used public transit a lot more, or the companies that benefited were more the hotels, like Hyatt, which talked about that, as opposed to Avis, which apparently people weren't renting cars.
Jody, thank you. Jody Lurie, surveillance cruise correspondent with Bloomberg Intelligence as well.